and welcome to the Amazing You podcast with Elizabeth Maldonado. I am your host, and we have a special guest today. It's Robert Almonte, and he's going to talk to us about a course he is offering here for the law enforcement officers. It's about the Mexican cartels and drugs and human trafficking, and it's going to be held here in San Antonio.
November 8th to the 12th.
I'm sorry, November 8th through the 12th. I'm so sorry. But I wanted him to talk to us about it. He has an extensive background in law enforcement. He was a deputy chief in the El Paso Police Department, and he also served with the US Marshals. So we have a lot of experience to draw from, and I just want to give him a proper introduction and then have him talk about his experience and then what led him to put these courses together for our law enforcement officers.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Elizabeth, for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for helping me promote the International Summit on Mexican Cartels and Gangs that we're having here in San Antonio, Texas, November 8th to the 12th. And I'm really excited about it because as you're aware, I'm sure, and your listeners are aware, the biggest problem our country is facing right now is the Mexican cartel activity, and we're seeing a big increase. And last year we lost about 93,000 people to opioid overdoses, and a lot of those opioid overdoses were caused by the oxycodone pills being laced with fentanyl. So there is an epidemic, and then now with the recent surge of immigrants coming across our border, the Mexican cartels have increased their activity in human smuggling and human trafficking, which results in child exploitation, sex trafficking. So we're going to talk about all those topics at the conference. And I got involved in this because of my 25 years experience with the El Paso Police Department. As you mentioned, I retired as a deputy chief. I went through the ranks. I worked narcotics in El Paso. I did undercover work, worked with informants, did search warrants. I spent the majority of my career working narcotics and supervised a lot of great men and women working narcotics. I'm also past three-time president of the Texas Narcotic Officers Association and also former executive director. And then I served my last law enforcement gig was serving a United States Marshal for the Western District of Texas from 2010 to 2016. But I'm really excited about this summit because I'm one of the speakers, but we're going to have 7 speakers there, including myself, to include my good friend Victor Avila, who has a very interesting story to tell. He was involved in an ambush in Mexico when he worked for HSI. Him and his partner Jaime Zapata were ambushed by the Zetas cartel. Unfortunately, Jaime Zapata succumbed to his gunshot wounds and he died. So Victor Avila has written a book called Agent Under Fire, and he's going to be one of the speakers. And then I have Steve Duncan from California. Also have Jeff Harmon, former resident agent in charge of the DEA Matamoros office, recently retired. Leo Quintero, an outstanding analyst. Nelson Arriaga from California, expert on transnational, international gangs. And then I have a special guest, Loan Grillo, and he's a journalist in Mexico, and he's written several books, and he's going to tell it like it is when it's concerning the politics and corruption in Mexico, also weapons trafficking. So we're going to have 4.5 days of information for our law enforcement officers, and they're going to walk away knowing pretty much everything and anything to do with the cartels. And of course, I'm going to be speaking about the history of the cartels and also the major cartels that we're dealing with now, especially in the United States. With the 2 biggest cartels are going to be the New Generation Cartel, the Cartel de Jalisco Nuevo Generación, led by El Mencho, and then we have the Sinaloa Cartel. But there's other cartels involved as well, especially here in Texas. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about narco-corridos, the music they like, the cockfighting that they're involved in, the horse racing they're involved in. I'm also going to talk about who they pray to for protection from law enforcement, the different legitimate Catholic Saints, and then other ones like Santa Muerte. So it's going to be well worth their time and their money to come to this conference.
It's amazing to see all of the different facets that go into working with, trying to stop the cartels and things of that sort. I recently had gotten involved with just our local police department here, going to the COP meetings and things like that. And then we had like the COP refresher course, and they had people from HIDA come in and give some information about drug dealing and the drug trafficking and the grow houses and things like that. And I thought it was really interesting how something really small can give you insight into what's going on in that property. And we had one of the officers here for the West Patrol, whose brother is involved with HIDA, and he said that one of the reports was that the suspicious activity was that the trash can didn't make it to the street. That if people live there, you take your trash out, and the trash never made it. Trash can never moved. And so that's what led them to investigate the home. And it was a huge grow house, and they had like an expensive play set, the wooden play sets that they, thousands of dollars worth. And there's balls and bikes and stuff, but there was never any kids that came out and, really played on them. So all of that was suspicious activity when the neighbors had turned it in, but, and said, hey, y'all need to come out here and look at this. And it was interesting to hear that the HIDA officer kept in contact with that person, and they developed a rapport and a relationship. And he says, you little things like that we don't even think about, and we pass up all the time. And you think about the idea of wanting to become better and move to the next level and all that. But how can you do that if you're not even feeling safe? That's like our basic need that needs to be met in order for us to evolve. And so things like this are really important, I think, especially for our officers, to be informed as much as possible about what's going on. And I know when they're...
That's absolutely correct. And you mentioned the indicator of possible stash house. And we're actually going to talk about stash houses at our summit. As a matter of fact, when I was a narcotic commander in El Paso, I was a HIDA task force commander for the first stash house interdiction task force of its kind in the country. That stash house task force is in existence, and I teach that class around the country. So what law enforcement needs, the eyes and the ears of the community. If you see something suspicious, let us know. So that's what that class is all about, is engaging the community to help us, to help keep them safe. So we're going to talk about cartels using the hotels and the motels also for their drug trafficking, for their human trafficking, for their sex trafficking. 4.5 days, and we're really packing a lot of information in 4.5 days. But I'm a big supporter of HIDA. I ran a HIDA task force in El Paso, and as I mentioned, we started the HIDA Stash House Interdiction Task Force, as well as the Hotel Motel Task Force, and they're both still in existence. So yeah, that's what it's all about, is getting the community involved, and also not just along here in Texas or along the southwest border, but we need to get people aware of what's going on throughout the United States, because the border has moved. And I do this training all over the country. I just did a class on the Mexican Cartel last week in Atlantic City, New Jersey, for the New Jersey Narcotics Officers Association. And I'm going to be in Rhode Island and Virginia Beach. So the border has moved, and we need to get people alert, but then they need to be upset about what's going on in our country.
Exactly. I think the same thing. I know I had tried to start, just here in our neighborhood for a little while. There were like 2 houses that were rent houses, and there was some stuff going on there that we knew wasn't on the up and up. And that's how I got involved with the COP. But I just felt like at that time, because that was happening, a lot of the neighbors got involved. So it was really like we had a class here at the house, and it got packed. It was like standing room only. But once that was dealt with and those people moved, they didn't stay, involved. And I guess that's one of my biggest challenges is finding a way to keep them motivated and involved and keep that momentum going. What kind of things do you think that we can do as a community, like not the law enforcement officers, but the community itself, to work better with law enforcement and create those strong bonds?
Well, I think where it starts is exactly what we're doing right now, and that's you. I give credit to you for spreading the word about what's going on with the cartels, and we need to continue doing that. We need to make people more aware of what's going on. And the bottom line is that the cartels are out of control, and the Mexican government is not doing anything to handle on them. There's just so much corruption involved in Mexico that makes it easier for the cartel to operate. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel really bad for the good people of Mexico, because they're living under those circumstances and those conditions, and their government is not helping them. The Mexican cartel basically control everything. And I think what we need to do, my opinion is that the Mexican cartels are extremely brutal, violent. They're beheading people, cutting hearts out. And I should mention this, that summit that we're having in San Antonio in November, on the flyer and on my website, we put a warning that the content is extremely graphic. And I've had officers pass out during class. I had one pass out in New Jersey last week. But I show them the graphic stuff because they need to know what the cartels are doing. And then I get similar cases that have occurred here in the United States. I mean, we've had hearts being cut out here in the United States, beheading. A lot of people need to know about that, and they need to get upset. And quite frankly, those are acts of terrorism. And I truly believe that the Mexican cartels need to be designated as terrorist organizations, because they are committing terror every day in their brutality. And when they're killing or responsible for 93,000 deaths in the United States, it's time for America to wake up and demand that our government do something about it. And if our government won't do something about it, well, then how about this? How about the Americans, how about the United States citizens here sending a message to Mexico and boycotting Mexico, and don't go to the resort, don't go to Cancun until the Mexican government does something. And we're doing this for the good people of Mexico, to help them, because I can't think of anything else to do except declaring the cartel terrorists, boycotting Mexico until the Mexican government gets the handle on this situation. And then the other thing I think we need to do is that our government, our federal government, needs to saturate the southwest border with hundreds of law enforcement officers and put a chokehold on all of the cartel activity that's occurring there, including drug trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and everything else that they're involved in. And the Mexican cartels are not only involved in drug trafficking. That's what a lot of people don't understand, especially for the pro-legalization people out there. I debated former presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke several years ago, and he was a city councilman. His argument was legalize marijuana and all the murders in Mexico go away. It's not about drugs, it's about money. It's about money. The cartels are tapping the pipelines illegally in Mexico, stealing fuel. They're into stealing avocados, extortion, you name it. Legalize all the cartel activity is not going to go away. And that's what we need to do. Is somebody needs to get angry. And sometimes I feel like I'm the only one that's angry.
No, I think there are a lot of people who are angry. I just think that a lot of them are under this fear, even like in our own neighborhoods, people don't want to report things because they're afraid of the, repercussions that could happen. But I do think that there is a need to organize and become, a united group of people wanting the same thing.
Right.
So,
yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, when is enough going to be enough? I mean, we need to do something. And, these people that are afraid of reporting a possible drug house in their neighborhood, well, actually, they're in more danger of allowing that stash house to exist there than by reporting it to us. Because you can have shootings there. Their children can be out in the yard, rival cartels show up, there's a shootout. And all they had to do was report it. And let me say this, remind your listeners and your viewers, you can remain anonymous. You can remain anonymous, because really what the citizen is reporting is not criminal activity in itself. You see what I'm saying? They're reporting suspicious activity. So the officers based on that call are going to develop their own probable cause without the need of using that citizen who called as a witness. Keeping them off a police report, keeping them off of, out of court. And besides that, they don't even have to give their name if they don't want to when they report it.
No, you're right. And I think when we had the COP class here, and it was one of the officers that had it here at the house, and he was very good about being able to relate to what was going on with the neighborhoods. He's literally from the area, grew up in the area, so he was very cognizant of what goes on and how people react. And he had a really good approach about it. But I've also run into some where I remember one of them told me, and I think it was we were reporting them breaking into cars, and he says, "Well, we expect it's the West Side." And I thought, wow, like that is not what I thought was appropriate for that officer to have said. You know what I mean? You're working the West Side. This is your beat, you know, and to say that really like it rubbed me the wrong way. So we
Yeah.
have some that are really great about the way they interact with the public, and we have some that kind of say things that are inappropriate sometimes. And I think it turns the people off, and you know.
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right, and I've seen that throughout my career, and I still see it sometimes now. And what it is the police officers are a reflection of society. So you know, you have good people in society, bad people. You have people that are passionate about what they do in society. Same thing with the police department. I was very fortunate. I surrounded myself with officers that were passionate about what they did. They also had a
Exactly.
good attitude, and attitudes are contagious. And
Oh
that's why
yes.
I tell my guy, don't hang out with officers with negative attitude. They're going to bring you down. So it's
And they do.
unfortunate, but let me tell you this, there's no doubt in my mind that those kind of officers are a minority. And if that officer doesn't work out, contact another officer until you find somebody that cares. And believe me, they are there. You just find somebody that cares. And here in San Antonio, if somebody's having difficulty with reaching and finding out a good police officer, I know several with the San Antonio Police Department, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. I know Chief McManus personally. I know the Sheriff Salazar personally. Matter of fact, the chief is co-sponsoring the summit in San Antonio. The San Antonio Police Department is co-sponsoring it. So we have
Awesome.
his support. He's going to be there. His officers are going to be there. The sheriff said he was going to send some officers as well. So there are, that's the good news. Overwhelming majority officers are good, caring officers that really care and have a passion for what they do. So
Mhm.
it's not right when you run into an officer like that, but don't judge the entire department like that.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Let
Yeah,
that one
no.
go.
And
Contact
no, that's
somebody
true.
else.
And I think that's what's happened in the media is that, you know, you get a couple bad ones and then they blow it up and they make the whole career. I mean, everybody who chose that career being seen under that same light, and it's not that way
Right,
at all.
right.
No, I've had very good experiences. I worked with some of the safe officers and we did some activities here in the neighborhood. You know, we had like a basketball shootout, and then we had another like movies on the lawn, and you know, the night out and things like that, just to try to create that sense of community with law enforcement. And for a little while there, I thought, you know, we were making strides, and then I just feel like it's not there yet. You know what I mean? And I'm passionate about wanting that to happen. So when I saw that you were offering that course, I thought this is perfect. This is exactly what our officers need. And so this is only for law enforcement officers, right? That can take the course, or is there anything open to the public at all, like about things like this?
Well, we make exceptions. When we say law enforcement, we don't mean just sworn officers, gun-toting officers. Like it's open to crime analysts, and crime
Mhm.
analysts are a very important part of law enforcement.
Mhm.
And I'm a big advocate, supporter of crime analysts. So we're going to have some crime analysts in attendance. Also, prosecutors should be attending. Probation officers, federal officers, people working the jails. So that's what we mean by law enforcement. As far as civilians, that they're accepted on a case by case basis. But to say it's open to the general public, no, because we are going to be talking about some ongoing investigation, case sensitive information. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to
Yes.
show some extremely graphic content that I think even some officers have difficulty viewing it.
That's true now, and I can imagine just how intense all of that gets. Um, well, I just don't know how to support our officers or how to support our law enforcement here in San Antonio, and I want to do that. I do want to do that. I want them to feel supported. I want them to feel like, you know, they're admired. I think the society now is not treating them the way they should. And I think it's because of the few officers that, did things in other areas, and they kind of see everybody under that same light, but it's not the way it is. So that's one of the things that I really want to work at.
You're doing that already. You're doing that already.
Thank you.
And just keep doing it. I mean, we're never going to actually be there 100%, but the objective is to keep moving in that direction and get people moving away from this defund the police movement and all the police.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Abolish the police, ridiculous things like that.
It is. It's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. And you're right. And I think even that is, in some sense, unbiblical. That there's always supposed to be some sense of order.
Exactly.
And that would definitely keep it from being in order. So as far as the Mexican cartels, what do you think is the biggest problem as far as like transporting drugs across the border? What do you think is the biggest thing? Do you think it's, like something the Border Patrol can take care of, or something that, that immigration is an issue, or what do you think is the biggest issue with all of that?
Well, let me say this. First of all, our men and women working along the border, our U.S. Border, Customs and Border Patrol, HSI, ICE, all of them are doing a tremendous job. And quite frankly, they're overwhelmed. And quite frankly, I don't think our government is giving them the support and the equipment that they need to do their job effectively. They're tired, they're overwhelmed, and I think it would be a good idea if we had the vice president or president pay them a visit on the border and thank them for the job that they're doing. It's an extremely tough job. So all of those agencies are combined are necessary to address or to protect the border, address all of the criminal activity there. But although we do have drugs and illegal aliens, obviously, that come across the border area. When I say the border areas, I mean not the port of entry, the actual border. But I will tell you this: when it comes to drug trafficking, the majority of the drugs make it across over the port of entries through cargo vehicles. A lot of the trucks, commercial vehicles, that's where most of the drugs are coming across. We do have some drugs coming across in passenger vehicles, hidden compartments. We do have body carriers that are walking across. The drugs are taped to their body, or they swallow a condom or balloon with the drugs. Or on the border area, our border are running into a lot of the illegal aliens coming across, and they're also running into what we call backpackers. These are the backpackers that have a backpack full of drugs, fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, and they run across the border, and then they dump it in the trunk, and the truck takes off. But most of the drugs, as far as the majority, the heavy amounts, large amounts, are coming across through commercial vehicle at our port of entry. And a lot of people ask, well, why don't they inspect every single vehicle that's coming across? Why don't they run a dog on every vehicle? Well, it's physically impossible to do that. And the lines are long already. Can you imagine?
Yeah, they are.
Would be if we did that. But having said that, in spite of that, our agents are really taking down a tremendous amount of drugs under those circumstances.
Wow. No, I believe it. I just, I wish that there were a more organized way of getting the public to, like you said, get upset enough to take action. I think a lot of times they complain, but they're not really taking action to where it's making a difference, and the complaints can happen all day long, but if you're not doing something and taking action to make a change, then it's never going to change.
A little bit. The other thing I would like to add is regarding the immigration situation on our border. The Mexican cartels have been involved in human smuggling for years and years, but because of the insurgence of immigrants trying to make it across the border, well, the cartels have tapped themselves into it, and they're more involved in that. And it's not just people coming from Mexico; they're coming from the Honduras, from Salvador, from other countries. And these people are paying the cartel $7,000 or more to make it across. And then very often they make it across to a stash house over here, And then some of these cartel caretakers will tell them, well, now we need more money. And now that human smuggling turned into human trafficking because of being held against their will. The cartels were even overwhelmed by the situation. They even had to come up with wristbands to place on the people they were smuggling so they could identify the people that they were responsible for. And those wristbands, those wristbands will have a code that tells them which cartel they belong to and has the name of the person being smuggled. More importantly, it has the contact information for family members of that person being smuggled. So that's what they use to extort the family for more money. So yeah, the cartels are so overwhelmed. Over here on this side of the Border Patrol agents are finding discarded wristbands where they take them off once they come across the border. I'm sure you remember, what was it? I believe 2016, 2017, that big 18-wheeler that was at the Walmart in San Antonio, 100 people in there, 10 died.
I remember that.
Horrible. Yeah, that was horrible. I did an interview with the Dallas TV station on that incident. But that cartel was involved in that human trafficking incident. And let me tell you this, why are the cartels increasing their involvement in human smuggling? Well, let me tell you this, it's more cost effective for the cartel to smuggle people than drugs. Because when somebody's coming from, let's say, Guatemala, and they're paying $7,500 or $10,000, okay? The cartels get their money up front. So if that person gets taken down or apprehended by Border Patrol on this side, the cartels don't care, they already got their money. When it comes to drugs, well, the cartels don't get their money up front until the drugs reach the destination. It could be Chicago. And very often they don't get all the money right away. So if the drugs get taken down at our border or anywhere between our border and Chicago, well, the cartels lose the value of the drugs, which is a lot of money, and they lose the money they were going to get for the drugs. So it's more cost effective for them to be involved in human smuggling and less risky for them as well. And they make billions of dollars. The human smuggling is a multi-billion-dollar business for the Mexican cartel.
Oh my goodness, that's so sad. No, and I was reading not too long ago, they had a place they were opening here for people who had been part of or who had been trafficked, and they're working with them to get their lives back together. And it was an officer named Chuck Paul who put together this innovative way of dealing with these people. And I thought it was really neat because he even got an award, I think it was in DC, for his work. And I got to listen to some of the speakers, and I thought, how sad, because their lives have completely changed. Their sense of trust is not there anymore. And it's like they have to rewire their brain to figure out how they're going to, continue on. So yeah, it's very detrimental to not just them, but the society in general. And one of the things that really surprised me, they said one of the hot spots was like the medical center area, which I never would have thought. I always thought it was a safe area, but that was one of the hot spots. And I thought, wow, you just never know.
You just never know. That's absolutely correct. Yeah. And let me say, the other thing is that especially the young girls and teenagers, young women, older women that are escorted over here into the United States, sometimes, unfortunately, they're raped. They're raped by their coyote, or pollo, whatever you want to call them. And what's happening is they're encountering what they call rape trees, where the coyote that raped the female will take some of their undergarments and hang them on a tree. So they're encountering trees with several undergarments belonging to females. So the people coming over here are paying a lot of money, and then they're risking so much, even their lives. The trains that are coming from southern Mexico up to the border, those trains have been nicknamed La Bestia, the beast. And the reason for that, because a lot of people will fall off or they're pushed off and they get run over by a train. Many of them lose body parts, body limbs, or are even killed. So these people are risking all of these things, trying to make it into the greatest country in the world. And if I was over there, I'd be doing the same thing.
Oh, I believe it. I interviewed an author just not too long ago, and she said she crossed over the border, and she had her two kids, they're both boys, in a hefty sack, and she made it across the border. She said they were in the bag, and then underneath them were all the clean clothes. So when I got over, they wouldn't be wet, and I could dry myself off and then put clothes on. And she applied for the lottery and got, her citizenship. And one of them's a doctor now, the other one's a director for cinematography. And I thought, wow, what a difference she made for those two, right? But
Right.
that you, like you said, the harm that you put yourself in, and the danger that you put yourself in doing those things is really outrageous. But sometimes it works out for them and sometimes it doesn't. So it's a very scary thing. Well,
Yeah,
I am
it
so
really is.
glad that you were able to come on and talk to us a little bit about what you had to offer. And you have a consulting firm here. And how would people get a hold of you, Robert? If they wanted to get a hold of you, get more information or sign up for the classes, where can they, do you have an email or phone
Well,
number?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Thank you for doing that. But people can get a hold of me through my email. My email is robert@robertalmonte.com. Altogether, robert@robertalmonte.com. And then my website is robertalmonte.com. And I'll even give them my cell number, and that's 210-740-6170. And then also, yeah, this conference for law enforcement, but if any group out there is interested in having me attend a function, a private function, and speak about the cartels, I would be more than happy to do that. And of course, it would be, my material would be relevant to the audience.
Awesome. I may contact you for that. I'm planning
Absolutely.
I'm planning a live event soon. And because I just started with the public speaking, so I think I may contact you more about, get more information on that. Thank you so much for being on, and I appreciate you.
Elizabeth, thank you for having me. I appreciate you, and just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, and God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.